Though the musings on this podcast might be sweet as a bright red maraschino cherry, the language and themes can be sour as a dark red tart cherry. On this episode, we're cherry-picking the topic of intentional intuition with Meliea Black. Hey y'all, I'm Grace, host of Mediocre Mystic, and this is Mindful Maraschino, the meditative moment when we pause and ponder a particular seed of truth cherry-picked by one of our cherry cobbler congregants. Thanks for tuning in with your forks and ears. Please take a moment to subscribe, follow, rate, and review Mediocre Mystic on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, or any of the platforms where you find your podcasts.
So it's important for me, in order to be able to keep getting up every day and going to nursing school and working and being a mom and doing all the things that I do, in order to keep doing that, I really have to be able to set these intentions in my life and have something that is guiding me so that I'm not just being dragged along by all the things that are happening outside of me. Doesn't mean I ignore or try to pretend nothing's happening. It just means that that both dynamics can exist at one time. It can be just fucking chaos out in the world, but I can still have intentional, intuitive practice in my own life, in my own relationships, in my own endeavors. And so that is the thing that hopefully we're all going to work on finding, because I truly believe that as we do that, as we pursue our own endeavors, our own growth, our own paths from this really pure place of intention and intuition, where we're not being led purely by influence from other people and other sources, I believe that that's really the way to come back into a healing place of collective good, of community, of connection with each other. And I believe that's how we find our way back to compassion.
If you're currently obsessed, as I am, with all four versions, American, British, Australian, New Zealander, of the traitors, this one is for you. Now, that very bad Scottish pronunciation is a tip of the cap to Alan Cumming, the greatest host of all time. If you're not familiar with the traitors, it's a competition in which several players are chosen to betray the larger group whilst they try to keep their identity secret and eliminate faithful players. In addition to this elimination, there is a round table in which the group as a whole attempts to weed out and banish the traitors with varying degrees of success. They often oust their own faithful players. But what in the world does this captivating reality competition show have to do with Melia's encouragement to us to practice intention out of our own intuition? Well, they often go with their gut, and convinced of their choice, they often vote incorrectly, sending a faithful player home, whilst a traitor remains in their midst. I also see them go with someone else's gut, where the voting can turn into almost a mob mentality. And there is no amount of convincing the poor condemned player can try and express that will stop that momentum. Much debate happens around this table, and as described in my current obsession of the traitors, a person's gut can lead them astray, and it can also be swayed by the persuasion of others. So if you're anything like me, you're suspect as hell of the advice to trust your gut. I've been given this advice many times in many environments in differing forms. Go with your gut. Trust yourself. Follow your instincts. Listen to your inner voice. Be guided by your own intuition. Being raised fundamentalist, I did a lot of things in the name of God that were so fucking misguided and resulted in causing pain to others. But to my core, I believed I was doing the right thing. God, it turns out, is an excellent scapegoat. When I was either being judged by someone or judging someone else myself, the ultimate comeback was, we'll take it up with God. It's God's word, God's truth. I'm just the messenger. When I began to deconstruct, I realized how sincerely wrong I was. Without God as the fallback, I had to take responsibility for my actions, and I was utterly gutted by guilt. I distrusted the people who preached legalistic hellfire and brimstone at me about all of the people I had come to love and respect in the wide, wicked world. I distrusted the professors who taught me how to defend a lie now that I had done my own impartial research. And I distrusted myself the most for believing them and for causing harm instead of helping. When I first reconnected with Meliea as the intuition activist, I remember wishing that I could trust myself with the same certainty that she did. It is something I've considered a lot in the last few years, especially as I've been making efforts to move forward in the work of spiritual companionship. I didn't want it to be fraught with the same pitfalls of the past. I didn't want to be dragged along, as Meliea said, by the chaos of attempting to be what I thought people wanted me to be instead of being my true self. So, then, with all of my concerns, how in the hell do I cultivate the kind of intuition that I can trust in myself? I think that is a matter of what is guiding your gut. What are we feeding ourselves? We hear a lot in our current medical media about gut health, and I'd say that applies as strongly to our intuition as it does to our intestines. If we, like the contestants on The Traitors, allow ourselves to get hung up on something that isn't important and has no root in fact, we could find ourselves voting a faithful opportunity out of our lives. On the other hand, if we stick to our decision, even when it goes against the grain, based on our own empirical evidence, we can root out those issues that would lead to a betrayal of ourselves. I think it's all in the intention we set and the way we pursue it that will inform our intuition. Martha Beck says, culture wants us to come to consensus, while our true nature demands we come to our senses. I think this is how we nurture our intuition, with nature itself, with our own senses, and what they tell us without preconceived judgments from society. And just like The Traitors, life is lived in seasons. You win some, and you lose some. Remain faithful to yourself throughout, and as each of us do this one by one, we can create that collective good through compassionate community, as Meliea exhorted us. Now that you've heard from Meliea and me, and The Traitors, I want to hear from you. What is a favorite practice of yours? Call or text me at 980-355-9665. Email me at mediocremysticpod@gmail.com. Visit mediocremystic.com and check out the show notes for links to social media and references from this episode. Don't forget to subscribe, follow, rate, and review Mediocre Mystic on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, or any of the platforms where you find your podcasts. And if you'd like to hear more from Meliea, go listen to her Lunar Living episode in the 2022 season. Learn how her near-death experience changed everything, from deconstructing her fundamentalist evangelicalism to reconstructing her life, standing firmly in her own truth. Until next time, try all kinds of varieties of cherries, and pick the one or ones that taste the best to you.